Hi, this is Flux, and today we're going to build an Apex Prime from Sabre. This is a very high-end, all-metal constructed Springer, and really is the Apex Prime of blasters. So today we're going to run through this whole build and show you how to build one. Starting off, you're going to need several tools, mainly pliers, some Allen keys, one of these screw gauges, which we're going to start including with these kits. We have thread locker blue and thread locker red, and of course a mallet. And throughout the build, there's going to be a few other tools here and there, but these are the main ones. So let's go ahead and jump right into the build. First, we're going to install the pistol grip mount, starting with this piece and an M3x20 countersunk flathead hex. Now this is going to go into this right here. We're going to take our tension spring, drop it into the hole, and then we're basically just trying to make sure that the screw goes into the loop. And then you can check to make sure that that is actually caught. Now we're going to attach this spring to the sear. And to do this, we'll set it perpendicular, grab onto the spring, and then pull that up, and then just screw that in. Once you're done securing the spring to the sear, rotate it so the sear is pointing backwards like this. Next, we are going to attach this to the grip sear plates using the smallest M3 screws. Now we're going to sink in the pins. These are the 3mm by 20mm dowel pins. So for the catch over here, let's put one pin there, and then the trigger goes right there. Next, we're going to install the grip. Now keep in mind, this grip is an AEG grip, and we do sell it at Out of Darts, but it does not come with this blaster. To use the AEG grip, we need these two plates. Each side's going to get two M4x8 countersunk screws, and then that just slides on here. And then from this part, we're gonna drop a screw down. Okay, and after kind of fishing around with that, that did take all three washers, so keep that in mind. And lastly, just slide that in there. It should have enough friction to hold it. Make sure this orientation of this part is correct. You can put it in the wrong way. And this isn't really required, but I just like a little bit of lube when you have metal touching metal. It just feels better. And we're gonna set this aside. Now we're going to assemble the mag release block. Starting off, we're going to fix the spring onto the mag release lever using an M3 bolt. Now we're going to drop a pin into here and catch it onto this loop of the spring. These are the 3mm by 20mm dowel pins. And now to put the other two pins in. This first pin is just going to go right there, and then the second pin is what is going to go into the actual mag release. Now to install the that stands for middle magwell module. These get pressure fit into here. You might need some persuasion. Next, we're going to put together the priming block. And at the top, we're going to use the M3x6. And just a tip, make sure to not tighten everything down until it's all in its correct spot, or it'll be hard to put it together. Also, this helps that you don't cross thread anything. Now we'll just tighten it all down. Next, we're going to install the priming block onto the linear rails. Now, take note, if this slides off, these are loose bearings and you'll have a big mess. So we found out it works better if we take a little bit of tape and basically just lock that down so that these will not accidentally slide off as we're working. Starting with the longer rail, we're going to install 4 M3x6 screws. Then we're going to take 4 more screws and pass them into here. You might have to loosen these 2 screws up. I was getting hung up there. Let me tighten these back down. And now we attach onto this rail. Then we go ahead and just take this, flip it upside down, and it seats right in there. Now we're going to put together the ram base and the skinny pusher. First, we're going to install the skinny pusher into the plunger head. And then this one, we will use some red Loctite. Just a little pro tip, red thread locker is permanent, but it can be undone with some heat. But typically use this when you want it to be a permanent connection. And if you see any excess, go ahead and wipe that off. Now we're going to throw the large O-ring on the ram base and the smaller O-ring on the pusher. Now that we have this all put together, I'm going to pull the tape off because this next part, I will be sliding this into the magwell block. And now we're going to secure this bottom rail with an M4x6 button head screw. Now we're going to attach the rod onto the ram base. This is held into place with an M4 grub screw. Then we're going to sink in an M4x20 bolt, but before we do that, we're going to put some red thread locker on there. Now this next part, you want to slide this in all the way through this assembly into the priming block. Now, we actually had kind of an issue with this one. We've had to actually take a file and round off all these edges and kind of remove some material. This is because when we went into here, it just would not push all the way in. So I'm not sure why that is. We're actually going to reach out to Sabre and let them know. But now it does fit fine. So we're going to slide that in. Once that hole is lined up, we're going to add some more red thread locker to the M4x20 bolt and drop that in. And a little side note, as we're working on this, we kept pushing this back and forth. I ended up just putting these bolts in here as end stoppers because I actually came off track and lost some bearings and had to put them all back in. So this actually worked pretty nice, but I will be taking these back because I need these for the build. All right, now we're going to install this quick spring swap module. So this is going to slide in, and then we're going to sink in the grub screws that are a little bit longer than the other one. This is M4x8 grub screw. And so what we're going to try to do is line up that hole and slide this all the way down. Might have to back off and twist it. But once you line up, you will be able to sink it all the way in until it's flush. And then do that on the other side as well. Now to install the plunger tube. First, we're going to use some super lube and lubricate this plunger tube. And you're going to need quite a bit of super lube. So I'm actually just going to kind of really pile it on here. And when you think you've got enough, you probably need a little bit more. Now we're actually going to put this on here and kind of rotate it so that it evenly disperses. And you should feel no resistance once you get to this part. Just kind of work that in a little bit. Then we seat this here, and this needs to be facing directly in line with pretty much that hole, like that. And we're going to go ahead and sink in that M4x4 grub screw. Now to prepare the plunger head, I'm going to put this O-ring on here, and we have a shock pad. So we'll peel off the adhesive back and stick that right in the center. Now we're going to start with the mag release, and we're going to be installing a lot of these M4x6 button head screws. There are 4 screws that are a little bit shorter. So the M4x6 do not fit in these 4 locations. Let me show you. You got this spot right here, and then this spot in the back. And of course, same on the other side. Everything else is the same, but just be mindful of these 4. And let's install this magwell spacer. Now to install the front, this will just slide in here, and the top and bottom linear rails will slide right in there. Now we're going to install this back block. Before we do, let's go ahead and put this in, and I'm going to put some more lubrication on here, some more super lube. Slide that in the plunger tube. That feels good. Then I'm actually going to put this block on and kind of finagle this in here, and we're making sure that hole is lining up. Now I'm going to put this on. I'm actually going to flip this over and continue putting in these screws on this side. Now to attach the pistol grip and trigger assembly. And because my pin keeps falling out, I'm going to use super lube as kind of like a glue just to keep it from sliding out. There we go. Line this hole up, put that there for now as I drive this side in. Now we're going to give the blaster a flip and install all these button head screws just like the other side. Now when putting all these screws in, I've noticed that you actually want to keep it all loose until you get them all in the right spot. And then once it's all in the right spot, then you can start cranking down. And I actually recommend going from side to side, space it out as you tighten it all down, because this whole thing kind of shifts and moves on you. All right, now we're going to finish this back catch area. So we're going to insert this spacer and then install this dust cover. All right, and that goes right here. This cover goes over it. And then we're going to use M4x10mm button head screws. And now to install the top rail, but before we do, let's sink some grub screws. And you don't need to tighten those all the way down, you're just basically making them flush. And then one in the front. To secure these rails, we're going to use 2 M4x10 button head screws. You'll notice these 2 angled parts, those are going to be actually touching each other. And let's go ahead and install the forward pump action Picatinny. It just gets seated like that. Now the Sabre Apex Prime does not come with a forward pump grip, so we have a worker one here. If you'd like to pick up one of these are available in our shop. But to install these, it's pretty easy. Just put it on the Picatinny and just tighten that down. Now to install the bolt prime. Now you can actually put this on left or right, depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm gonna put it over here for now. Now we're going to install the spring and the stock. So we just slide that in there. You're going to have to pull the trigger so that you can get past the catch. Once you're there, we have this part. Now this is adjustable, so you can actually increase or decrease the spring tension. You give that a twist. And then we have this locking collar here. Kind of push it down to lock. And basically I take a flathead and just kind of lock that down. I'll keep it from moving. Now back here we have the actual stock extension, depending on if you need it or not. Right here we have the actual butt stock. To set this, we're going to use the M4x4 grub screws that we'll use to keep that from spinning. And we can also clamp this down. Now to install the barrel. So we're going to identify the chambered side, and we will be sliding on this barrel nut. Let's go ahead and slide this down. But essentially, we're just going to come out a few millimeters. Once we have that in the right location, we're going to screw down this barrel nut. We're going to seat one of these just to lock it in place, and then we'll pull it out because we can't reach all the other grub screws because of the shroud. All right, and then we just seat that back in place. And now for the last step, in which we string up the scar. Now they provide you with a meter of fishing line. This is a cosmetic cover that we'll put on in the end, and then the grub screws. For this, you're gonna need some tape, and you'll also need an M2 Allen key to do this build. Now, the first thing you need to do is tie a slip knot. This is how we're gonna secure this onto the scar. And to pull this tight, I actually do need some needle nose pliers. I'm gonna go ahead and double knot that. Now that we got our slip knot done, we're gonna basically slide that on here, pull it tight. Now the key with stringing these up is every step of the way you have to be really tight with this line. So we're gonna pass it into the first hole here. So see how we set that knot right there, pulls it tight. And essentially we're gonna start here and then go to this hole here. Now inside there, I don't know if you can see that, it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but we're just trying to pull that tight to feed down to this next hole. Straight down, and then I'm gonna feed it up. And the hard part is making sure all this is still tight as you pull it up. It's kind of like tightening shoelaces. And then we just repeat this step until all of them are threaded. After you're all done, you should have a pattern like that. And you're wanting to pull this as tight as you can. And then we're gonna actually spin this around, and I'm gonna secure it with some tape. I'm just gonna be using electrical tape for this. Cut a piece off, and we're just gonna wrap this around to hold everything in place. Then you can put on your cosmetic cover. And now to attach it to the barrel. I went ahead and preset all these grub screws. They're ready to be tightened down. Now, when doing this, there is a little bit of play. You don't want to crank one down and then go from there. You want to basically get them all to seat evenly at the same time, which is easier said than done. So what I do is I just bring them in just enough to where it's just barely touching the barrel and that they're all evenly going in at the same depth. Then I'm going to put it into position. Obviously, you probably want your Sabre logo to be facing the upright position. And now I'm gonna start to crank it down. And actually, you don't really have to crank this really tight. It's really just to set it so it doesn't fall off. This does mar up your beautiful powder coated barrel, but I don't know any other way to get away from this. All right, so that is how you build the main blaster for the Sabre Apex Prime.
If you've made it this far in the video and you would like to pick up one of these, there'll be links in the description. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our email at orders@adadarts.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Flux. Be safe and happy foam flinging.